I discover my wife was cheating with her gay friend. Daughter knew, and it looks like she was helping her, and now son hates them. I really need some help. My wife and I, we are both 40 and we have been married for 20 years. We have two teenagers, a 20-year-old girl and a 15-year-old boy. We met when we were 11, got married when we found out she was pregnant, and have been that success story of high school sweethearts that live the American dream. We even have a golden retriever. She became a stay-home mom after the birth of our son, and life chugged along pleasantly. I thought everything was fine. We were in a dead bedroom and didn't fight much. I did work a lot, but it never strained our relationship. I always came home to a happy wife that was delighted to see me. There was one thing, however, that she did a lot. Constantly I'd wake up on weekends and she wouldn't be there, just a lovey note on our whiteboard, where she writes that she ran to the grocery store or went to meet a friend, whatever. She's an early riser though, and I found nothing odd about that. Other times I'd come home from work for my daughter to inform me she had gone out volunteering at my son's school, or she was at her yoga class or something like that. My daughter always confirmed whatever my wife's story was and always seemed to know where she went. My son was more in the dark, but they're not as close, so I figured that's why. Then comes about 3 weeks ago, my coworkers and I went out on lunch break to a diner nearby. On the way, I saw my wife's car parked at the edge of a lot. Slowed down and stopped to see her kissing a man we'll call Kyle, a close friend of hers. The kicker? She told me he was gay. I told my coworkers to go ahead, turned back, and broke down in my office. I got home later that day. My daughter still lives with us and usually comes home after my son, but before me. She informed me that my wife had gone out to visit Edith, a friend of her mother's. Wife came home a little after. While she was in the shower, I took her phone and began scouring through it. Messages with Kyle were innocent enough. I'm assuming she deleted the more suggestive ones. I scrolled further and tapped on the ones with our daughter and began scrolling up. She apparently hadn't deleted these ones. And there was an exchange a couple weeks ago about my wife, telling her to tell me she's going to volunteer at the animal shelter. Kyle had called her over. My daughter sent her a winky face and told her to enjoy herself. These went far back. I think she sporadically deleted a few conversations, but the ones that remain have a pretty clear message. My daughter has been actively helping her cheat on me and continually reassures her that it's the right thing to do, and that Kyle's great, and more and more and more. I confronted my wife Saturday evening when my son was at my mother-in-law's. Cue Waterworks. I told her to just leave, and wailing, she packed an overnight bag and went to leave the house, running into my daughter who was coming home. She immediately took my wife's side and yelled at me for even thinking I could boot my wife out of her own home. She started screaming at me and told me to get out of the house. I ended up leaving and swung by my mother-in-law's to pick up my son, to take him out to dinner. I gently explained how things might be changing, and he took it like a champ. Fast forward to now. Divorce proceedings have started. I'm staying at my parents', and after finding out what happened, my son refuses to stay with his mom or talk to his sister and is staying with me. My daughter continues to blame me for this whole thing, and both her and my wife are twisting the story to family members who have begun to inquire. My son is enraged at them, and when my wife came by today to try and convince him to come home, he slammed the door in her face and called her a home-wrecking slut. My wife called me in tears and accused me of parental alienation. I need you guys to help me out. First of all, how do I even begin to repair my relationship with my daughter? Second, how do I make sure my son doesn't hate his mom and sister for this? I really don't think that'd be healthy at all. Best comments. Dude, seriously. Cut off the wife, and certainly cut off your daughter. Your wife has already brainwashed your daughter into thinking this is normal behavior, and what she did was fine. She covered for your wife for God knows how long. Seriously, man. Your daughter must resent you at some level and clearly does not give a F about your feelings. Your son does not need to and shouldn't be around these morally bankrupt people. Take it from me, I've been in his position. Let him hate his mom and sister, and don't try to force a relationship there. If it happens, it'll be years from now. For your own mental well-being, stay away from both your wife and daughter. They are thick as thieves, and stop letting them control the narrative of the situation. Make sure it's known to the rest of the family exactly what happened. You'd be surprised how quickly a lie can destroy your reputation. Your daughter isn't a teenager. She's an adult woman, and she could have and should have told you. Don't be so easy to look past her betrayal. Her mother put her in a difficult position, but that doesn't mean she chose the right course of action. Because she didn't. At all. That would have been telling you. She isn't sorry for deceiving you. Not even a little bit. She actively encouraged your wife's cheating. The winky face. Telling your wife to enjoy herself, continually reassuring your wife that it was the right thing to do. Your daughter is a terrible person. I understand that you want to repair your relationship with your daughter, but at least for me, she betrayed you even more than your wife. She was in this conspiracy against you. Both of them were feeding you with some fictional stories, and behind your back sending instructions and smiles to each other. Think about the ramifications of this situation. Your wife has kept you in the dark and was fooling around with a guy perceived as gay. The sheer fact of cheating and lies means the end of marriage. But your daughter? Apparently, she thinks that it's fine to screw around and play a good wifey. If she had any respect and loyalty, she would not actively conspire against you. In my eyes, her behavior is appalling and inexcusable. Your son is angry, and should be. Just think about it. He just realized that he lived with two backstabbers. I think his anger will just burn out. Just keep an eye on him, so he didn't get in any kind of trouble because of his distress. Talk to him. Tell him you'll go through this together, and all will be fine. Update. Although you guys were a little harsh, I have to thank a lot for you guys telling me to grow a spine. I really do need to. I contacted my good buddy who's a divorce attorney, and I'm so proud of how my son is acting like an adult. My wife and daughter have both showed up multiple times at the door to try and talk to my son. He and my daughter are really close and spend a lot of time together. Now he won't even talk to her. She's crying, wife's crying. And son tells them to leave him alone or he'll call the police. They finally leave, and after reading some comments, I'm not going to force him to have a relationship with them. My wife's betrayal I can somewhat deal with, but the fact my daughter was helping is too much. On another note, I was paying for her college and I cut her off. My wife, being a stay-home mom, does not have the funds to cover for her, and I make too much for her to qualify for financial support. It was almost funny after I texted her I was cutting her off, how quickly she responded and begged me to reconsider and immediately began apologizing. Whatever. Although really, my life sucks right now. Best comments. It is rich that your wife is blaming you for parental alienation. She is the one who has been systematically and over a long period of time alienating your daughter from you. Unfortunately, your daughter is going to look up to your wife as her role model. This is going to set her up for a life of failure as far as long-term relationships are concerned, and maybe more. It's just unfortunate that your wife has poisoned your daughter's mind against you. You need to ask your wife if this is the kind of example she'd like her daughter to see.